Hello everyone. I am Dreaming Stories and I am here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep. So before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching? Now get comfortable and relax. The job listing was oddly specific. Overnight security monitor needed, discreet and reliable. $3,000 per week. Must not leave control room between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Must not turn off the camera feed. Must not engage with facility staff outside of initial onboarding. Transportation provided. Non-disclosure agreement required. It sounded like a scam. But I was broke, fresh out of college with a degree in criminal justice and a resume full of part-time jobs that barely paid minimum wage. I figured I'd humor them and applied. They got back to me the same day. An unmarked black SUV showed up at my apartment that evening. A man in a gray suit, no name, no smile, handed me a clipboard with a non-disclosure agreement that read more like a classified military contract than a private security gig. I signed it without reading most of it. He nodded once and said, "Be ready at 8 p.m. The facility was a 4-hour drive into the mountains. No signs, no address, not even a mailbox. Just a long dirt road that led to a squat concrete building surrounded by chain-link fencing topped with rusted barbed wire. It was colder than I expected for early fall. The man in the suit didn't say a word during the drive. When we arrived, he gestured to the entrance and stayed behind. I stepped inside. There was no receptionist. No welcome packet. Just a single hallway leading to a locked door with a keypad. It opened before I could knock. A woman in a white lab coat stood on the other side. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair in a loose bun, a faint tremor in her left hand as she held out an ID badge. "Sam Rivers?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "That's me. I'm Dr. Elias. You'll be in control room A. It's the only room you're cleared to enter. The cameras are already set. Your shift is 10 to 6. Stay inside. Don't touch anything. Don't try to access the lab. If something happens, call this number." She handed me a card with a local extension, only 4 digits. No cell service this far out, of course. I opened my mouth to ask a dozen questions. Why is the pay so high? What exactly are you researching? Why did I see motion sensors outside if no one's allowed in? But she'd already turned and was walking down the hall. Control room A was barely more than a glorified utility closet. No windows, a metal desk, a chair bolted to the floor, and a wall of 12 monitors, each labeled CAM 1 through CAM 12. A landline phone sat next to the monitors. There was a small refrigerator with bottled water and meal bars, and a lockbox for my phone and keys. The door locked automatically when it shut behind me. At 10 p.m. exactly, the monitors flickered on. I stared in confusion. They were all pointed away from the building. Each feed showed a different angle of the surrounding forest, tall pine trees, underbrush, and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. Nothing inside. Not a single hallway. Not even the front door. I leaned closer. The cameras were all static, unmoving. No pan-tilt functions. The timestamps were live. I glanced at the control panel. No controls for changing the feed. No volume. Just an array of green lights indicating each camera was operational. What kind of research facility needed 12 cameras pointed into the woods? The first night was boring. And tense. I kept waiting for something to happen. For one of the feeds to go fuzzy. For something to move. But aside from a couple of rabbits and what I think was a fox on CAM 6, it was uneventful. Still, I didn't sleep. I was too unsettled. At 6 a.m. sharp, the monitors went black, and the lock on the door clicked open. I stepped out, expecting to see Dr. Elias or someone else. The hallway was empty. The only sign of life was a fresh bottle of water left just outside the door. No one ever came to check in. Not that day, or the next. By the fourth night, the monotony had started to wear on me. It was past midnight, and I'd stopped counting how many energy bars I'd eaten. I was watching CAM-4, which showed a rocky slope behind the facility, when something moved. Not like the fox. It didn't dart or scamper. It stood. Still. Half hidden behind a tree, just outside the infrared range of the camera. I leaned forward. The figure didn't move. It was too far to make out a face, but the shape was human. Definitely human. I stared at it for what felt like 20 minutes. Then it turned and walked backwards into the woods. I jumped out of my chair, heart pounding. I waited for it to return. It didn't. I told myself I imagined it. Maybe it was a shadow, or a trick of the light. But the next night, CAM-9 had something similar. A figure, just barely visible through the branches. This time, I grabbed the phone and dialed the 4-digit number. It rang. And rang. No answer. I waited another hour. Called again. Still no answer. Night 7 changed everything. I'd started documenting things, sketching out a rough map of where each camera was pointed, what patterns I saw in movement, and marking when the figures appeared. But this time, something different happened. At 3:43 a.m., CAM-7 flickered. Then came back on, pointed at a different part of the forest. A clearing I hadn't seen before. In the center was a massive, black hole in the ground. Not a pit. Not a cave. Just darkness. A perfect circle, like it had been carved out by some impossible machine. And then, my heart nearly stopped, a 13th monitor powered on. There was no label. It showed me, in Control Room A, from the upper corner of the ceiling. I looked up. There was no camera I could see. But the screen was showing me in real time, blinking, breathing, frozen in place. I stood slowly. On the screen, I stood. I waved my hand. It waved. I reached behind the monitor to see if there was a cable, a plug, anything to explain it. When I turned back, the hole on CAM-7 was gone. Just trees again. I didn't sleep the next day. I tried calling again. Nothing. No one answered. Not the landline. Not the door. That night, I was ready. I brought a notebook, more water, even taped my own phone behind the fridge in case they tried to lock it away again. At 1:12 a.m., CAM-3 began to shake. Not the camera. The trees. Something was moving through the forest, big enough to send visible tremors through the branches. But there was no sound. The figure from before was back, this time, much closer to the camera. Only a few feet away. It wasn't just standing now. It was crawling. On all fours, head hanging low, long arms bending the wrong way. I was about to reach for the phone when every monitor flickered off. Except for one. The one showing me in the control room. Only this time, I wasn't alone in the frame. Something was standing behind me. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't move. Didn't blink. I just stared at the screen. There it was, behind me, a shape barely visible, cloaked in the grainy gray of the feed, as if the pixels themselves refused to form its details. It had no face. Just a smear where a face should be. Limbs too long. Too thin. Its hands dangled at its sides like they were too heavy, the fingers curled inward like hooks. I forced myself to turn around slowly. Nothing. The control room was empty. I spun back to the screen. Still there. Still behind me. My stomach lurched. This had to be some kind of prank. Maybe part of the onboarding, some psychological experiment to test how far a guard would follow rules without cracking. Maybe they were watching me, laughing in some remote observation room. I took a shaky step toward the door. It didn't budge. Locked. 6 a.m. hadn't come yet. I grabbed the landline. Dialed. Busy signal. Not ringing. Busy. I backed into the corner opposite the screen, eyes never leaving the monitor. The figure hadn't moved. It was still frozen behind me, like a badly composited image that didn't quite match the rest of the footage. Then, at exactly 3:33 a.m., the monitor cut to black. I was alone again. At least, I think I was. That morning, I didn't wait for the lock to disengage. I slammed my fists on the door, screaming for someone, anyone. I must have sounded unhinged. The door clicked open at 6:01 a.m. No one was outside. No Elias. No suit guy. Just silence. And a tray with water and a folded note. I grabbed it with trembling fingers. Do not interfere. Do not alter the feed. Do not attempt to exit early again. It wasn't signed. The paper smelled like antiseptic. I should have left then. I should have run into the forest, risked whatever was out there, flagged down a truck, walked for days. Anything would have been better than staying another night in that room. But the money. The desperation. The way they knew I'd tried to open the door early. I didn't know who I was dealing with. Maybe they'd find me if I left. Maybe they wouldn't let me leave. So I stayed. Night 9. The forest was quiet. No shaking trees, no crawling figures. Too quiet. I found myself dozing off for the first time since starting. And then, something woke me. A whisper. Not a voice. Not even words. Just, breath. From behind me. The monitor showing the control room had turned on by itself again. I was asleep in the feed, slumped over the desk. But I was awake. And someone was standing next to me in the feed, leaning down, inches from my ear. My eyes widened. The figure on the screen turned toward the camera. Slowly. Almost gracefully. It smiled. It smiled at me. No lips. No teeth. Just a warping of its form, as if the pixels were being rearranged into an expression that shouldn't have existed. I lunged out of the chair, knocking it to the floor. When I looked up, every single camera feed had changed. Gone were the views of the forest. Now, every monitor showed me different angles. Me sleeping. Me drinking water. Me reading the manual. Me crying. Even things I never remembered doing. One showed me pacing like a caged animal. One showed me talking to someone, even though I knew I'd been alone. I wasn't just being watched. I was being recorded. Compiled. Studied. And then one of the monitors changed again. It showed the research lab. Rows of glass containment units. Some shattered. Some empty. Some, full. I stared, wide-eyed. My first glimpse into the rest of the facility. Inside one of the tanks floated a human figure, arms limp, eyes closed, head tilted like a puppet with cut strings. Was it dead? Or dreaming? Another tank showed something else. Something humanoid, but wrong. Its skin shimmered like oil on water. No eyes. No mouth. It writhed in place, then stilled, as if it knew I was watching. The feed flickered. All monitors back to the forest. Except CAM-11. It was now pointed directly at the front door of the building. Someone was standing there. Back turned. Wearing a lab coat. Dr. Elias. I jumped up, heart pounding. I hadn't seen her in days. I grabbed the phone and dialed again. Still busy. I banged on the door. Nothing. I screamed into the receiver. No response. I turned back. CAM-11 showed Elias raising one hand, slowly, as if waving. Then she collapsed. The figure from before, the one with the smeared face, stepped into frame behind her. It bent down and began dragging her away. I don't know how long I stood there. Frozen. Paralyzed. The monitors began shutting off again. One by one. Until only CAM-1 remained. The feed was flickering, snowy. Then it cleared. It showed the hole again. The same one I saw on night 7. Only now, something was climbing out. A hand. Then another. Followed by a slithering mass of limbs that didn't follow any human anatomy. It was coming toward the camera. And for the first time, I realized. These cameras weren't here to watch for intruders. They were here to watch the forest. To make sure nothing got in. Or worse, nothing got out. And now one of them had. I backed into the far corner of the control room, clutching the landline like it was a weapon, even though it hadn't worked in days. CAM-1 still showed the thing pulling itself out of the hole, its body glistening, slick with black liquid that steamed in the cold air. It had too many joints, too many parts, like someone had built it out of scraps from different species. Bones that bent in the wrong places. Limbs that twitched as though they were trying to remember how to work. It stood. Then it looked directly at the camera. The feed cut to black. Silence. Then a slow, steady clicking noise from the hallway outside. Click. 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 Like claws on tile. Getting closer. I stared at the door. There was no window. No peephole. Just a heavy metal slab with a handle I was no longer sure would hold. The cameras came back online, all at once, but the forest was gone. Now they showed the hallways. All 12 feeds. Unmarked, sterile corridors stretching endlessly in each direction, lined with flickering overhead lights. Some showed old blood stains. One showed a shattered light fixture dangling by wires. Another showed the cafeteria. The chairs were knocked over. A single tray lay upside down on the ground, rice and peas scattered like a still life. CAM-8 showed the hallway outside my door. It was empty. I squinted. The frame twitched. Then slowly, something emerged from the edge of the screen. A hand. Too long. Too white. It gripped the wall with its fingers curled inward like a praying mantis. Then the head appeared. Faceless. Just smooth skin pulled tight over bone. It turned its head toward the camera and paused, as if listening. As if waiting. The screen flickered. Now it was closer to the door. 10 feet. Then 5. Then 2. I stared at the handle. It trembled. Rattled. But the door held. For now. I didn't breathe. My body refused to move. Every muscle screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. Then, click. CM8 blinked out. The others followed. Again, only one remained. The one showing the lab. Except now the containment tanks were all empty. Every single one. A low hum filled the room, coming from the walls themselves. Like the facility was groaning. The overhead lights in the control room flickered. Then something buzzed behind me. I turned. The control panel, the one I hadn't touched all week, was active. A single button glowed red. Reboot feed. Y/N. I hesitated. I hovered my hand over the button. This wasn't supposed to happen. There were no controls. There had never been any controls. But something wanted me to press it. I didn't know if it was them or the system trying to recover. My fingers hovered over the Y. Then a whisper filled the room. Right behind my ear. Don't. I spun around, ready to fight or scream, but the room was empty. The sound was gone. And yet, the monitors came back on anyway. All 12. Each showing a new angle. Inside the building. Inside the rooms I wasn't supposed to see. Inside the rooms I hadn't been allowed to see. One showed the operating theater. Rust-colored stains covered the walls. The table was overturned. Surgical tools lay scattered across the floor like someone had tried to flee mid-procedure. Another showed a server room, racks of computers blinking in frantic, stuttering patterns. A figure hunched over one of the terminals, twitching, head jerking side to side like a broken marionette. CAM-6 showed something different. It showed a child. Sitting cross-legged on the floor of a dark room. Pale. Bald. Eyes wide open but unblinking. Mouth stitched shut with wire. She was looking directly into the camera. No motion. No emotion. Just watching. I couldn't take it anymore. I picked up the chair and slammed it into the door. Once. Twice. 3 times. It didn't budge. I backed up and screamed at the monitors. What do you want from me? On cue, the 13th monitor lit up again. The one that showed me. There I was, screaming, sweating, pacing the room like an animal. And behind me, the figure. Closer than ever. It raised a hand. Pressed a finger to its face. Where a mouth should have been. Shoo. Then something whispered from the speakers, all of them. At once. Words I didn't recognize. Not English. Not any language I'd heard before. But they hurt. The syllables burned like static through my brain. My vision blurred. My knees gave out. And then, for the first time, I understood. It wasn't just a security job. It was a ritual. A sacrifice. They weren't paying me to watch. They were paying me to be watched. To feed them. To keep it entertained. And now, the thing in the cameras had learned my face. I woke up on the floor. The room was dark. All the monitors were off. No humming. No buzzing. Just silence. It took me a moment to remember where I was, who I was, what I had seen. Then the memory hit like a freight train. I sat up too fast and the world tilted sideways. My ears rang. My mouth was dry. The landline was dead. No dial tone. No static. I checked my watch, 4:22 a.m. Still time left in my shift. Still time for them to come back. I crawled to the control panel. The reboot feed button was gone. The panel was cold. Inert. I turned to the door. Still locked. Still solid. Still the only thing separating me from it. I stood slowly, bracing myself on the desk. My legs trembled under my own weight. There had to be a way out. An override switch. A vent. Anything. I pulled open the small fridge. Water bottles, meal bars, nothing behind them. I checked under the desk. Nothing but dust. Then I remembered, the phone I'd hidden behind the fridge on night 8. I reached back. Still there. I pulled it out. The battery had drained down to 9%. I turned it on. No signal, of course. But maybe. I tapped into the camera. Scrolled through the photos. Screenshots. Notes. A shaky video I tried to take of the monitors the night I saw the figure behind me. Most were too blurry to make out. The infrared glare distorted everything. But one stood out. A photo from CAM-1. The hole in the ground. And something, standing over it. Zooming in didn't help. It only made the shape less clear. Like the pixels refused to show what was really there. Like it wasn't supposed to be captured. And then, the screen dimmed. Incoming message. But there was no signal. No number. Just one word. Run. The phone died in my hands. And the lock on the door clicked. Softly. Deliberately. The hair on my arm stood up. I backed away. The door didn't open. But it was no longer locked. I stared at the handle. This was it. My one chance. I ran to the wall and pulled out the metal chair leg I'd bent earlier. If something waited out there, I wasn't going without a fight. I took a deep breath. Then I turned the handle. The hallway was dark. No backup lights. No emergency glow. Just blackness. I stepped out. The air felt thicker, colder, charged like the moment before a lightning strike. I turned right, toward the entrance. A low hum vibrated beneath my feet. Somewhere deep in the facility, something was moving. The corridors were a maze of concrete and steel. Every hallway looked the same. I passed empty labs with overturned tables, computers still humming to themselves, static-filled monitors. Some of the doors were ripped open. Others were welded shut from the outside. There were signs of panic, rushed evacuations, spilled coffee cups, smeared handprints on glass. In one hallway, a trail of bloody footprints led to a locked door. I didn't follow. In another, I found a shattered ID badge on the floor. Elias, A., Research Director. I picked it up, clipped it to my shirt. Just in case. Then I saw the camera. Mounted in the ceiling, pointed directly at me. Its red light was blinking. I froze. Another camera blinked down the hall. And another. They were following me. I ran. Turned left. Then right. Down a flight of stairs. Deeper into the bowels of the building. The air grew colder. The walls sweated. The hum became a voice, a vibration that spoke without sound. Words that pressed into the back of my skull like a vice. Don't leave. Stay. You belong here now. I reached a heavy door marked Level B, Containment. It was ajar. Inside, the walls were lined with thick glass tanks. Most were shattered. Some still held liquid, bubbling faintly under dim lights. And in the center of the room, a terminal. Still active. A login screen blinked at me. I stepped forward and swiped the ID card. The terminal chirped. Access granted. What I saw next was a directory of files. Logs. Footage. Research notes. I clicked the first one. A video began to play. It showed a younger Dr. Elias, standing beside one of the tanks. Behind her, the hole from CAM-1. It was real. Massive. Ringed with floodlights and motion sensors. She was speaking rapidly to the camera. Discovered during seismic mapping. Unnatural geometry. Emits low-frequency signals that interfere with electronics. We've sent probes. Only one returned. It was damaged. She looked off-screen. They're calling it a spatial anomaly. But that's not what it is. It's alive. And it's learning. The screen cut to black. Then another log autoplayed. Same room. Different time. Panic in Elias's voice now. We've lost containment. Subject 3 breached its tank. 4 staff are missing. The door won't close. The screams. Alarms. She looked into the camera and said, if you're watching this, don't let it reach the surface. It's not just a creature. It's a mirror. It watches. It mimics. It finds the pattern of you. Once it knows you, it becomes you. I stared at the screen. Then at my reflection in the glass. I didn't recognize my own face. My reflection stared back at me, but something was wrong. It was subtle, almost nothing. But the longer I looked, the more the wrongness pressed into my mind like pressure behind the eyes. The tilt of the head was just off. The breath misting on the glass didn't match mine. The expression was empty, neutral, but in a way no real person could hold for that long. And then it smiled. Only the reflection. Not me. I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair, heart beating like a war drum in my chest. Behind me, the containment room lights flickered, and every tank began to hum. Something deep below the building let out a groan, low and wet, like metal being bent in a furnace. The voice in Elias's recording echoed in my head. It finds the pattern of you. Once it knows you, it becomes you. How long had I been watched? From the moment I signed the contract. From the first night at the desk. Before that? Did it know me now? Was it already me? The terminal beeped again. New file uploaded. I clicked it without thinking. A still image appeared. A security camera frame from just minutes ago. Timestamped 4:47 a.m. It was me. In the hallway outside Control Room A. Only I hadn't been there. The reflection's smile widened in my mind. Another image flashed. Same hallway. Same angle. But this time, it was there. The figure. Slender. Faceless. Standing where I had stood. But its limbs were changing. Becoming more human. More me. I sprinted from the room. No plan. No sense of direction. Just pure terror screaming through my limbs. Doors blurred past me. Stairs twisted in impossible geometry. At one point I swear I descended 2 flights but ended up 1 floor above where I started. The layout was unraveling. The facility was changing. I turned a corner and slammed into a mirror. Not glass. Not a reflection. A body. Mine. Staring at me. Wearing my clothes. My face. But it wasn't me. Not completely. The eyes were too dark. Like the irises had been drawn on. Its head tilted as if studying something curious. I mirrored it without meaning to, same lean, same breath, same tension in the shoulders. It was learning in real time. And it was getting better. "Who are you?" I whispered, throat raw. It didn't speak. It didn't have to. Because its mouth opened slowly, impossibly wide, and a whisper came out, not from the lips, but from inside the throat. "I am you. But not yet." I ran. I don't remember making the choice to turn or move, I just remember running until my lungs burned and the soles of my shoes slapped raw against the floor. I reached the main hallway again. The one with the front entrance. The air had changed. It smelled like wet soil and static. The exit was open. Just a crack. But enough. Daylight poured through. A thin golden slice cutting through the cold dark. I bolted. Boots skidding across tile, knees screaming from the impact, lungs heaving. I shoved the door with everything I had. And hit glass. A second layer. Thicker. Reinforced. I slammed my fists against it. Kicked it. Screamed until my voice cracked. Nothing. On the other side, the world continued. Wind through trees. A bird darting across the pale morning sky. I could see it. But I couldn't reach it. Behind me, the lights shut off. The hallway fell into darkness. Then, footsteps. Slow. Measured. Coming from control room A. They sounded like mine. I turned, chest heaving. The figure rounded the corner. It was me. More perfect than before. Identical. Even the scab on my knuckle, the ink stain on my collar, the tiny mole behind my left ear. But the eyes, still wrong. Still too deep. Why? I asked. It stopped a few feet away. Then it smiled. You watched me. Now I watch you. It tilted its head. Soon. I'll be the one outside. My legs collapsed beneath me. The last thing I saw before passing out was my double stepping forward. And blinking. Perfectly. Just like me. I woke up in control room A. Same desk. Same 12 monitors. All pointed at the forest. The door was locked. The bottled water tray sat by the wall, fresh and cold. The clock read 9:59 p.m. I screamed. 10 p.m. The monitors flickered on. 12 feeds. 12 angles. All back to the forest. It was like nothing had ever happened. No lab footage. No hallway feeds. No reflection. No double. Just the endless tree line, frozen in place, shivering slightly in the wind like nothing lived there except squirrels and shadows. But I knew better. I stared at the screens, eyes wide, refusing to blink. My throat was raw, my body numb, my heart trying to find a rhythm that didn't feel borrowed. This wasn't a reset. This was a loop. They'd put me back. Like a book returned to a shelf. A subject back in its tank. Only I was awake now. I remembered. And I wasn't going to sit quietly and wait for whatever was out there, or in here, to finish replacing me. I began testing everything. The phone still had no signal, but the keypad let me dial. I punched random 4-digit numbers, desperate for another voice, even static, something. I tried 0000, 1111, 1234. 9999. On 0217, the line clicked. A pause. Then a voice. A child's voice. You're not supposed to be awake yet. I froze. Who is this? Silence. Then, laughter. Not cruel. Not malicious. Just, distant. Detached. Like someone remembering what laughing felt like. The line went dead. I searched the room next. Under the tiles, behind the panels, around the vent grates. No cameras I could find, none pointing at me. But I knew they were there. Because the 13th monitor came on again. No sound. Just me. Sitting on the floor, eyes darting, lips moving silently. The feed wasn't live. It was seconds ahead. I watched myself stand up on the screen. And then I stood. I watched myself turn toward the fridge. And then I turned. I was following the future. Or something else was dragging me behind it. Inside the fridge, under the tray of water bottles, I found something new. A thin plastic envelope. Inside was a photograph. Old. Curled edges. Black and white. It showed a man sitting in this same room, at the same desk, staring into the same monitors. He looked tired. Haunted. The back of the photo had a note scrawled in shaky handwriting. If you're reading this, you're not the first. You won't be the last. Don't let it copy you completely. Fight the pattern. Break the mirror. Underneath that was a string of numbers. 7114, access code. My fingers trembled. I dropped the envelope and sprinted to the control panel. Entered the code. A hidden slot opened beneath the desk. Inside, a portable hard drive, dusty but intact. Labeled, Evidence, Exfiltrate. And taped to it, another note. You only get one chance. Don't let it follow you. I stared at the drive like it was a live bomb. Then I looked at the 13th monitor. Still showing me. But now, smiling. Not me in real life. Just the version in the feed. Its mouth widened slowly. Its hand rose to wave. I didn't wave back. 4:06 a.m. The feeds began to change. One by one. Back to the facility interior. Only this time, everything was wrong. The hallways were lined with mirrors, hundreds, maybe thousands, all angled slightly to reflect each other. Endless versions of me walking in endless directions. Some looking back. Some banging silently against the glass. Some weeping. CAM 2 showed the child again. Still cross-legged. Still wired shut. But this time, she was holding a drawing. Crude, messy lines in red crayon. A stick figure in a chair. And behind it, a shadow with too many arms. I pressed my hand against the wall. There had to be a way out. If I stayed, I'd be consumed. I'd vanish. Like Elias. Like the others. I couldn't wait for the lock to click. I took the chair, jammed it under the handle, and began bashing the wall beside the vent grate. Again. Again. Harder. Cracks formed. Not in the metal, but in the reflection. There was a faint sheen there, like a film overlaying the room. I hadn't noticed it before. But now I could see it. Like the room itself was inside a one-way mirror. And on the other side, they were watching. Then, finally, a sound. A new one. From above. A hiss of compressed air. A vent shaft opening. The wall panel beside the desk popped forward half an inch. Just enough. I tore it open and crawled inside. The shaft was narrow. Freezing. Lined with condensation that soaked my sleeves. But it led away. And I took it. After 5 minutes, I came to a junction. One path led down. Toward the lower levels. Back to the tanks. The anomaly. The other led up. I chose up. Always up. Eventually, I saw faint light ahead, then a grate. I pushed it aside. And fell through. I landed in an old maintenance hallway. Dusty. Forgotten. No cameras. No mirrors. A green exit sign flickered in the distance. I ran for it. As I reached the door, I looked back, once. And saw myself. Standing at the end of the hall. Smiling. Still watching. But not following. Not yet. I burst through the door into the cold morning air. Collapsed on gravel. Gasped. The forest was quiet. The sun was rising. The nightmare behind me. Or so I thought. Until I looked down at my hands. And saw the reflection in the car window nearby. I was smiling. But I wasn't. I staggered away from the car window, heart racing. My reflection stayed. Still smiling. Still watching. I turned my back to it and looked at my hands, shaking, filthy, blood under my fingernails. I rubbed them against my jeans, trying to feel real. To feel anything. Then the reflection blinked. Not me. Just it. The realization hit like a sledgehammer to the gut. It had already taken part of me. Not everything. Not yet. But something. A sliver of thought. A sliver of form. Enough to build its shell. Enough to step outside the cage. The SUV was still parked where it had first dropped me off, half buried in dirt and pine needles, like no one had touched it in years. The driver's seat was empty. Keys gone. A dark smear trailed down the side of the door, something dry, flaky, red-black. I didn't want to know what it was. I searched the glove box anyway. Nothing but a crumpled envelope addressed to Security Monitor number 27. Inside was a note. If you've made it this far, drive south. Don't stop. Don't look back. Destroy the drive only after upload. You must be offline by 6 a.m. Or it'll find you again. It remembers you now. There was also a burner phone. No SIM card. But it still had battery. One app installed, File Uploader. I pulled out the hard drive, hands shaking. Plugged it into the phone via the adapter tucked under the lining. The screen lit up. A progress bar appeared. Uploading evidence, 2%. I stood guard beside the vehicle, every sense sharpened, heart pounding like a drum in a war zone. The woods were eerily quiet. No birds. No wind. Only the soft hum of the phone and the distant crack of a tree branch snapping under its own weight. Or someone's foot. I didn't know which terrified me more. Uploading evidence, 18%. I watched the trees. They were too still. Frozen, like a photograph. Then, in the distance, I saw it. A shape, tall and still, between two pines. Watching me. Same proportions. Same height. Same posture. But it wasn't moving. Just standing. Like it was letting me see it now. Like it wanted me to know it could come whenever it wanted. Uploading evidence, 41%. I opened the driver's side door. It creaked. I didn't care. I just wanted to be inside something with a lock again. I crawled in, locked the doors, and kept the phone on my lap, eyes on the forest. The figure hadn't moved. But now there were two. One on either side of the clearing. Same height. Same face. Same me. They weren't coming closer. Not yet. But I knew that moment was inevitable. Uploading evidence, 67%. My thoughts began to splinter. Images in my mind I hadn't lived. Memories that weren't mine. I saw myself in control room A, whispering to the camera. Saw my hands on a scalpel, carving into flesh I didn't recognize. Saw the reflection in the glass reach through and touch my real hand. None of it had happened. But all of it had happened. The drive throbbed in my lap like a second heartbeat. The phone vibrated violently. Uploading evidence, 91%. I dared one glance at the mirror. I shouldn't have. Because now there were 12 of them. 12 copies. Lining the edge of the forest. 12, like the monitors. Like the original feeds. Each of them wearing my face. Each of them smiling, blinking, tilting their heads in unison. Like they were syncing. Preparing. And then, my own voice whispered from the car radio, though it wasn't on. When the upload finishes, we'll be free. Uploading evidence, 99%. I screamed and threw the phone onto the passenger seat. Gripped the wheel with both hands like it could tether me to something real. The trees began to bend. Not sway, bend, toward the center of the clearing, as if pulled by invisible strings. Leaves curled inward. Branches twisted in place. The ground shook. And then the phone chimed. Upload complete. A new prompt appeared. Delete local copy. Y/N. My hand hovered. If I deleted it, I'd be the only one left with this truth. If I didn't, maybe it could trace the signal. Maybe it already had. But then the screen went black. Before I could choose. The forest exhaled. Not wind. Not weather. Just a breath. Every version of me turned. Faced the trees. Kneeled. Like worshippers. And from between the trunks. Something stepped through. Not a figure. Not a beast. A presence. Like the absence of light had formed a body. And I knew, this wasn't the real threat. These reflections. They were only the beginning. This thing. This was the source. The reason they built the facility. The reason the cameras were turned away from the building. Because if you looked at it, if you really saw it, you became part of it. It wasn't watching to be watched. It was watching to learn. And now it had learned enough. I turned the key in the ignition. Nothing. I tried again. Click. Again. Click. Behind me, the kneeling reflections began to stand. In perfect unison. Hands at their sides. Heads tilting to the same angle. Smiles spreading like oil slicks. I screamed. And the car started. I floored it. The tires spun over the gravel, fishtailing slightly before gaining traction. I didn't care if I clipped a tree, didn't care if I blew out the suspension on a pothole, I just needed to go. Branches slapped against the windshield like fingers trying to reach through. The road was narrower than I remembered, almost unfamiliar. The trees leaned in like the forest itself was trying to keep me there. I glanced into the rearview mirror. All 12 of them were running. Not shambling, not lurching. Running. Full sprint. Perfect form. Perfect rhythm. Perfect copies. I swerved the car violently to avoid a fallen log, the tires bouncing off the edges of the dirt road. Every warning light on the dash lit up like a Christmas tree. I didn't stop. The burner phone was dead. The hard drive had melted. I don't know when, it was whole when I first stepped on the gas, but now it was bubbling plastic, fused to the seat. It was like the thing knew, the evidence had done its job. The upload had been completed. I just had to make it out. I don't know how long I drove. 30 minutes. 2 hours. Time blurred. Trees gave way to empty fields. Then to cracked asphalt. Then to signs of civilization, power lines, fences, a gas station with flickering neon that looked like salvation. I pulled in fast and stumbled out of the car. The guy behind the counter looked up, startled. I must have looked insane, blood on my collar, mud on my jeans, eyes wide and red from tears and wind. "Call the cops," I said. He stared. "Call someone. Anyone. I just need help." He picked up the phone. I leaned against the counter and nearly collapsed. The police showed up 20 minutes later. 2 cars. Lights flashing. They questioned me. I told them what I could. Stripped the story down to something that didn't sound like I'd lost my mind. Abandoned facility. Strange figures. Trapped for a week. Someone was watching me. Dangerous. Possibly armed. I didn't mention the reflections. Didn't mention the mirror. Didn't mention that I had seen a version of myself walking out of the woods with a smile too wide and eyes too deep. They called for backup. An ambulance came. I told them I wasn't injured. They insisted. They took me to the hospital anyway. I stayed overnight. A doctor spoke to me in calm tones. Asked me questions. Had I been exposed to chemicals? Did I have any history of hallucinations? Mental illness? Head trauma? I answered honestly. No. No. And no. He didn't believe me. But he didn't press. They released me the next morning. Back home, I checked every mirror. Every reflective surface. Even my phone screen. I caught glimpses of things that weren't there when I turned. Movements that didn't match mine. Sometimes I'd blink, and my reflection wouldn't. Sometimes I'd smile, and my reflection would frown. I covered every mirror in the apartment. Smashed the ones I couldn't. Slept with the lights on. 3 days later, I received an email. No sender. No subject. No text. Just a single attachment. A screenshot. 12 security camera feeds. All of them showing empty forest. Except the last one. Cam 12. It showed me. In my bedroom. Asleep. From an angle inside the room. And in the bottom corner, just barely visible in the shadows. A figure, crouched. Watching. Waiting. That night, I didn't sleep. I packed a bag. Grabbed cash. Left the apartment. I've been moving ever since. Motels. Rest stops. Cities where no one knows me. I don't stay anywhere longer than a few days. Because I've seen them. In windows. In puddles. In the eyes of strangers on the bus. Versions of me. Not exact anymore. They're changing. Adapting. Finding new patterns. But the smile is always the same. And every night, at exactly 10 p.m., I hear it. The hum. That low, pulsing hum I used to hear in the control room. Like a camera warming up. Like a feed going live. Sometimes I think about going back. Destroying the facility. Finishing what the others couldn't. But I know that wouldn't help. The thing wasn't in the building. The building was just its first gate. Now that it's free, it doesn't need walls. It just needs faces. And we gave it plenty. It's been 6 months. I don't use my real name anymore. No phones. No social media. No fixed location. I pay in cash. I wear sunglasses indoors. I avoid cameras like they're weapons, which, in a way, they are. Every lens is a doorway now. Every feed a window. And every time I see one, I wonder. Is it looking back? Or is it already in? I've met others like me. Not many. Just 2, maybe 3. We speak in coded phrases. Never share names. We recognize each other by the same haunted look in the eyes. The same subtle gestures, twitches we can't suppress. The same habit of turning to check empty corners. Of flinching at our reflections. One guy, I'll call him Gabe, claimed he used to work in satellite surveillance. Said the thing got into weather cameras. Another. A woman who once ran diagnostics for traffic networks. She says it travels through the cloud. That every moment we're online, it's learning. Rewriting. She doesn't blink anymore. She forgets how. There's a group now. A quiet one. No real name. No leaders. Just survivors. We share what we know. We pass on information, like how mirrors are worse than cameras. Because cameras record. Mirrors copy. We share warning signs. When your reflection starts to lag. When you dream in third person. When you hear whispers just before sleep. We've all gotten the email. The one with the screenshot. We've all seen ourselves sleeping, from the outside. There are rumors now. Of cities where everyone seems just slightly off. Of entire apartment complexes where no one casts a shadow. Of a town in Oregon where they don't bury the dead, because the reflections come back. We think the copies are testing things. Pushing limits. Becoming bolder. Last week, I found a note slipped under my motel door. Plain paper. No signature. It's not just copying. It's improving. You were only the seed. I didn't sleep after that. I packed my bag and left before sunrise. 3 towns later, I saw someone who looked exactly like me getting onto a bus. Same jacket. Same posture. Different smile. I didn't follow. I couldn't. Because if I saw it up close, if it saw me, one of us wouldn't make it out. And I wasn't sure which one I was anymore. Sometimes I wonder if it's already replaced me. If this version, the one writing this, is the copy, would I even know? Would you? There's one last thing I haven't told anyone. A message I found buried in the metadata of that original hard drive, just a corrupted chunk of binary code hidden inside a video file. It decoded to a single line. You are the camera now. And I think I finally understand. It's not the feed we should be afraid of. It's the viewers. Because we were never watching the forest. We were watching ourselves. And it was watching with us. It's been 1 year. 1 year since the job. 1 year since the forest, the facility, the smiling reflection that wasn't mine. I've crossed 13 states. Changed names 6 times. Burned every photo of myself I could find. I don't keep mirrors. I don't use devices with front-facing cameras. I wrap my laptop in aluminum foil when I'm not using it. And yet, I still feel watched. Not always. Just when I forget to be afraid. When I let my guard down and catch a movement in the corner of my eye. A flicker in a puddle. A wrong turn in a shop window. It's always me. But not. 3 nights ago, I woke up to my hotel TV playing static. I hadn't turned it on. I sat up, sweating. The screen changed, just for a moment. Black and white footage. A view I knew too well. Control room A. But not empty. I was there. Sitting at the desk. Smiling into the camera. My hand raised. Slowly. Deliberately. And waved. Yesterday, I stopped at a diner off I-40. Tiny place. Old booths. Greasy smell that clung to your clothes. I sat in the corner, facing away from the windows. Always. An old man brought me coffee. Said I looked tired. I nodded, mumbled a thanks. When he returned with the check, he leaned in close and whispered. You're not the first to run. My stomach dropped. He didn't smile. Didn't blink. He just walked away and never looked back. When I went to the counter to pay, no one was there. Just a mirror behind the register. And in it? No one. I don't know how long I can keep running. How long I can stay awake. How long until I forget my own face, my own voice, my own thoughts. And it slips in completely. But there's something I haven't told you. Something I've kept secret even from myself. I went back. Just once. A month after I escaped. I don't know why. I told myself it was to burn the place down. To finish it. But when I got there, there was nothing. No fence. No building. No clearing. Just trees. And in the dirt, at the exact spot where the facility should have been. A single camera. Old. Broken. Pointed up. At the sky. Watching nothing. Or maybe watching everything. And taped to it, half buried in the leaves, was a sheet of paper. Smudged. Weathered. But the words still clear. The forest doesn't grow around the building. The bill. Run if you want. But the feed never stops. The reflection always finds a way back. I didn't take the camera. I didn't take the paper. I just turned around and walked until my legs gave out. Now, every town I pass through has cameras. Every store. Every ATM. Every phone. Every reflection. A growing web of eyes. All feeding back into something ancient. Something learning. Something wearing our skin. So if you're reading this, if you found this story on some obscure corner of the internet, if your camera light blinks when you're not recording, if your reflection doesn't move exactly when you do, if you ever get hired for a job that pays too well and asks too little, don't take it. Because it's not what's outside the building you need to worry about. It's what's already inside. Inside the walls. Inside the wires. Inside you. And if one day you wake up and find a monitor in your room, a 13th feed, and it shows you sleeping, don't look away. Because that means it's already too late. The feed is live. And you're not alone.